There is a moment which you do not see happening when answering a question stops being expression and instead it starts becoming performance. You open your mouth over and over and you realize that you're not speaking anymore. All you're trying to do is pass something. And that moment slips in so quietly that you don't notice it until you realize that every single time somebody asks you absolutely anything, you hesitate before you answer. You search for that right response in your mind, scroll in your mind to try and find something that fits, that's safe, that good response, and the one that won't shift the room. And that is that exact same moment where life stops feeling lived and instead starts feeling examined. It starts off quite small, somebody might ask how you're doing, and instead of checking the truth, checking how you're actually doing, all you do is check the atmosphere. You adjust your tone and you trim off the edges of what you actually feel, and you present whichever version seems the easiest. You might say, I'm fine, it's okay. And you may call it awareness, you may call it being considerate, and maybe it is for a while, maybe it is that consideration. However, over time, that instinct then starts to form a habit, because we all know how habits work. You speak less from yourself and instead more from calculation. And eventually you forget what unfiltered even sounds like before it even comes out of your mouth. And that is when that's how that shift happens. You begin predicting the reactions before you form your own thoughts. You choose answers based not on what's real and not on what the actual answer is, but on what won't complicate anything. It feels responsible and it feels considerate until you notice how tiring and thoughtful simple conversations are. You are tired and exhausted because you're performing comprehension instead of participating. You're anticipating imaginary consequences and running mental stimulations and shaping yourself before the other person even responds or even asks that question yet. And at that point, you're no longer giving answers to them. You are avoiding penalties and you've built a private grading system in your head that nobody else can see. And you're terrified of failing a test that nobody else is marking. It is fear, and it is disguised as composure. It is fear of disappointment. It is fear of being misread. It's fear of revealing something that you can never ever take back because you've set it into existence. So you stay small, you stay that quiet version. You stay predictable and palatable, and you convince yourself that this is maturity. This is my version of responsibility, when in reality, all it actually is self-erasure. Live like that long enough and even small questions will feel loaded. What do you want becomes a trap. What do you think about this feels dangerous. You start to trim your desires into something manageable and you file down your opinions until they don't inconvenience anyone. And the longer you do that for, the more disconnected you become from your own instincts, the more disconnected you become from your actual responses. You start losing those real answers because, like I said, we all know how habits are formed. Habits are dangerous, but they're also super strong. And the fact that you are constantly reminding yourself and telling yourself that this is how I should respond and this is not how I should respond eventually starts becoming that general thought pattern in your mind. It starts becoming the way you actually start to think because of the strength of habits. You may start feeling indecisive or inconsistent when in reality, all it is that you've been spending years silencing the part of you that knows exactly what it wants, only to appeal to those who ask that question from you. The weight isn't in the words themselves. It's in the constant editing of the words. It's in the constant re-uploading of that draft. It's in the way that you apologize before you even speak, in the way that you phrase your needs like they're suggestions. It's in the way your honesty sits within your chest, waiting for some sort of permission that never ever arrives because all you seek is validation. These conversations, they drain you because you are not allowed to enter them as you. You're not allowed to enter them as yourself. You walk into every single interaction always and already negotiating against an imagined reaction, which is kind of weird, is it not? Now that I've said it out loud, I hope that you can understand how parasocial this really feels. But the way you resolve this, however, the way you resolve this is the same way that you come to terms with the moment that you need to stop trying to get all your answers right. Once you realize that, once you come to that moment, once that hits you, you understand, and that entire structure of answering right just starts to fall apart. And it's not dramatically, it's not loud, it's not showing you the whole world that, I'm finally able to answer. It's quiet and it's rooted within you as a person. You realize that majority of people weren't even evaluating at all. They don't care about you as much as you think they do. They weren't keeping a score on the things you messed up on. They might have commented on it at one point, but it doesn't really matter to them. All they were doing was talking to you and trying to ask and trying to connect and asking you genuinely genuine questions. The judgment that you feared wasn't coming from them, it was coming from you. It's rooted within your own fears. The second you let yourself answer plainly and genuinely without rehearsing anything, everything feels like it starts to soften up. You may feel present again. You may feel human again even. And people may even seem easier. You may feel less tired. And it's not because the people change. It's not because the questions they ask you changed. Not because the conversations were any different. But just because you stopped bracing yourself. Imagine you walked around the world every single day constantly tensing all your muscles and your core and everything. You'd gas yourself out instantly. Your muscles would go sore within days, within less than days, even hours, because you cannot sustain that. That is the exact same thing as bracing yourself for conversation every single time. To finish this off, I just want to comment that a life lived trying to say the right thing every time is a life lived at a distance. It is a cautious and a compressed and a restrained life. It's not a real life worth living. You as a person, you specifically, I'm talking to you, who deserve a lot more than that. Individually, you deserve to be able to express yourself exactly how you need to in this world. You deserve a voice that isn't pre-approved by fear. It isn't predisposed by the imaginary reactions in your mind. And I know, you deserve a self that doesn't need any permission or any validation to exist. Because the real test in life was never about getting any of the answers right. It was whether you ever allowed yourself to give a real one. Thank you.